Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Jeff Garofalo, chiropractor extraordinaire from New Life Chiropractic in Bolingbrook, Illinois, coming to you with our February Holistic Living Workshop entitled Natural Solutions to ADD, ADHD. Now, I've been in practice a long time, and we've got a family practice, and I've got thousands of people that have come to me, and just so many kids, and so many moms and dads who are at their wits' end because their kids are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. And I want to let you know that I'm living this with you, gang. I've got 3 little boys, a little girl, and so parenting is not easy. I will tell you that there's more named diseases today than there ever was. And so I'd like to dive into ADD in about the next 15 minutes, give you some real good ideas about what it is, what it isn't, and how I work with it, not only in my household with my boys, but also in the practice, because again, our results are absolutely fantastic. When you dive into it, it really becomes something that we can tackle and we can help you out, because again, I've helped thousands of parents with this. So first of all, I want to let you know that it's definitely more prevalent in boys than girls. And let's talk about that for a moment, because guess what? The truth is, boys are more active than girls. It's just the way it goes. Boys, and I've got 3 of them, 10, 7, and 6, they are rumbling, tumbling, constantly active. They constantly want to move. They constantly want to do things. I mean, remember when you were a kid, if you were a boy, you wanted to constantly be outside and run and play and throw a ball. So I don't think it's anything to be that concerned about, because again, boys want to be boys. And I also have a little girl, and so she's definitely more calm than my boys. But at the same token, it can get out of control at times. And so I want to talk a little bit about what really is the cause when it becomes out of control, and how we help it in our practice, and how I basically help it at my home here with my boys. So first thing I want to talk about is one of the main causes of where this attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder comes from. And the number one place we go to in my office is at the very top part of the neck. Right underneath your earlobes is the first bone in the spine, called C1 or cervical 1, or it's called the atlas. Now, if we look in anatomy terms on a live human being, right at the C1 bone, right underneath my ear, right at the top part of my neck or the bottom part of my skull, the first bone sits right there. But there's an important piece of your brain that sits right there called the brain stem, or the medulla oblongata. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are sensing human beings. We constantly have touch, hear, vision, smell. We're constantly bringing senses into the body that come into our skin, into our nose, our ears, and so forth, and get sent directly into the spinal cord and get sent directly up to our brain. And the first place it hits right before it gets to the brain is right underneath the earlobes, right in between that first bone called the atlas, right in between there called the medulla. And the medulla oblongata kind of acts like air traffic control. It takes all these sensations and it filters them up and goes this way, goes that way, goes up, goes to this part of the brain. And the brain is supposed to do something, it's supposed to sense that, do something, and then send a signal back down through the medulla out to the body for the body to do something. Now, you have billions of sensory impulses coming in every single second. And if you had to actually sense all of those, you'd go on sensory overload and you'd drop dead instantly. So the one cool thing about the medulla oblongata is it kind of acts as a first level filter, where it says, okay, yeah, go up, and then go here, go up, go there, or hey, don't go up, or a signal might come down, so don't come down. So it kind of acts like air traffic control. It's landing planes, it's taking planes off, and it directs signals in and out of the brain so that the brain can stay focused and on task. And what we found in my office, and obviously with my boys as well, is when the first bone in the neck, called the atlas, C1, if it twists out of place, if it rotates, or if it bends and slides out of place, it actually physically going to start putting pressure on the medulla oblongata. When you physically put pressure on the medulla oblongata, it gets confused. So signals that should come in and go up and go to the right might not come up at all. Or signals that should come up and go straight up might go to the left, and different parts of the brain get stimulated that it shouldn't, and parts of the brain that should get stimulated don't, and now we become a mix-up. Signals go down that shouldn't, or signals go down that should, and the whole system becomes mixed up. So now you can't sense properly, you can't interpret properly, and then you can't send a signal back down for you to actually do something properly, which again is cognitive disruption. So that child, and it's no fault of his own or her own, can't interpret properly, and if you don't interpret properly, you can't give output. So it's like going to the computer and typing something in and hitting enter. If you type the right thing in and hit enter, you get output. You get the output you want. What happens if you type the wrong stuff in and hit enter? You don't get the output you want. And that's exactly what happens with interpretation, cognitive ability, and interpretation. If the first bone, the C1 atlas, is out of alignment, it's going to affect the brainstem. It's going to affect the signals going up, the signals coming down. Air traffic control is going to be confused, and that in itself leads to confusion for the child, because then they can't interpret what's going on and they can't output what you need. So the very first thing we do in our office is through examination, hands-on exam on the spine, and then we take very specific x-rays of the upper cervical spine. We do an x-ray from the side, and then we take an x-ray right through the middle of the mouth to take an x-ray of that top bone, that C1 bone, to find out if that bone is twisted, bent, or turned, because if it is, well, we know that that medulla is going to be affected. We know that the signal input and output isn't going to be healthy for that child, and that's the first area where we go. If we say that atlas or that C1 is out of alignment, we start adjusting. We start adjusting the bone into alignment. We take the pressure off the medulla, and what we start to see is the child starts to focus better. Input in, correct input to the brain, output, child all of a sudden focuses better. We start hearing from our teachers and our parents, hey, they're doing better on their homework, they're getting better grades, they're sitting more calm in class, they're interpreting, they're reading better, they're understanding. So the first place we go is C1 and the atlas to see if indeed that's out of alignment, affecting the medulla or air traffic control. Number two, look at the food source. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, the food source has become incredibly horrible over the last decade. Food isn't food anymore. Food is preservatives, it's toxins, it's masked as different things, especially sugar. It might not say sugar, but if it says high fructose corn syrup, it surely is sugar. And what we've seen is, as we've looked at more and more products, and my wife and I are experts at this, because again, we live a holistic, organic life. We look at ingredients and everything. And you'd be shocked to find out that you can't even pronounce some of these ingredients in the store labels. You can't pronounce them, which means they're chemicals, which means they're going to be toxic to your child. They're going to be neurotoxins. If you cannot pronounce some of the stuff in your child's food source, it is probably a neurotoxin, which means it's actually killing brain cells. Well, brain cells are important for paying attention and focusing. Number two, if it's got sugar in it, you're instantly stimulating the brain, and you're turning the brain on really rapidly. So that child's not going to pay attention at all, and then they're going to crash when their blood sugar drops. So you get this high freak out, and then you're going to get a drop. And you get a child who doesn't listen to you because they're almost in a sugar comatose. So they run around crazy, and then you tell them to calm down, and they crash, and then they don't get their homework done. They don't read because of the amount of sugar or high fructose corn syrup. I see a lot of it, and I'm going to have to call this company out, Gatorade. I see a lot of kids drinking Gatorade, whether it be sports and things like that. I don't know if you know this, but there's tons of sugar in Gatorade. So you think you're replenishing with electrolytes, but really there's just a lot of sugar in Gatorade. The best thing to do is just replenish with water. You want to get water in, because water is going to be anti-inflammatory. It's going to be important for the cells. It's going to lubricate. It's going to stimulate the brain. So it's going to create focus. Water will create focus in the brain. 75% of your body is made up of water. So Gatorade isn't the greatest thing in the world to give because it's got tons of sugar in it. The other thing I want you to look at is, again, I want you to look at labels. And, if you cannot pronounce the labels, if you can't pronounce it, it's not worth giving to your child. The other big thing we see kids younger and younger with Starbucks. I'm going to have to call Starbucks out as well, because coffee isn't coffee anymore. Have you noticed there's so much caramel and toppings and whipped cream, and it's just basically a bunch of sugar that these kids younger and younger are starting to drink. So we want you to eliminate the sugar products. We want you to get rid of the high fructose corn syrup. If you can't pronounce the names in the labels of the food sources they're eating, get rid of it because it is probably a neurotoxin. And what do? Replace it with gluten-free. I mean, gluten-free is huge now. You can get organic gluten-free stuff that you know is raw, or it's real, I should say, real food. So feed these kids fruits and vegetables as organic as possible. Raw fruits, raw vegetables. Stick with low glycemic index foods like apples, berries, and pears. Stay away from things like bananas after 6 o'clock or oranges, which are high in natural sugar. And again, they're going to spark your kid to ramp up and then crash. So in my household, I'm going to give you a little tip. We live on what's called a 5-day, 2-day rule. 5 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning. My kids eat fruit and vegetables. All their snacks, we look at all the labels. They're all real food, whether it be dehydrated fruit or organic. There's nothing in the labels that would suggest any type of neurotoxin or chemical because we will not give it to them. 5 days a week. They drink lots of water. They have fruit smoothies. They have juices. My wife makes juice and they have to drink this stuff. Okay? And then 2 days a week. Friday night, all day Saturday, we can eat whatever we want. We give them the garbage. We do. It's truth. We give them the crap so that they don't go off the deep end when they have an opportunity to go to other friends' houses and things like that. So their bodies, they start to recognize when they feel good and when they don't feel good, and they can start making their own decisions. We teach them how to read labels. We teach them what's good in food and what isn't, so that they know that they're eating garbage and they say, hey, we're eating garbage today. That's fine. But they know that 5 days a week, they're not. 2 days a week, they can. And what we see is, yeah, boys are boys in my household. But they do very well in school. They pay attention when they need to. And they're very focused. So the food sources are real important. 5-day rule, 2-day rule. Get the crap out on the 5 days, 2 days, whatever you want. Okay? So we talked about the medulla. We talked about the food source. Last thing I want to talk about, or I should say the last nutritional thing I want to talk about, is omega-3 fish oils. The brain and the spinal cord and the nerves are actually made up of good fat. That's right. The brain is made up of a majority of fat and water. And so for the brain to function properly, the fat has to be healthy. And for the nerves to function properly, in order to sense and then act out, the little coverings on the nerves are called myelin sheaths, are made of good fat. Well, every time you put in these neurotoxins from your food source and the sugar, you're actually breaking that fat down. Every time you're putting bad stuff in the body, you're breaking that fat down. And so we want to push a ton of good fat into the brain and into the nerve, the myelin sheath. And the way we do that is with omega-3 fish oils. That's right. Many studies done that show omega-3 fish oils are good for so many different things. But they're fantastic for kids with ADD, ADHD because they help build better brain cells. And better brain cells help you focus more. So we recommend omega-3 fish oils for your kids and adults. We don't recommend a cheap brand. Okay, the number one brand we use in our office, called Carlson's, fantastic brand. Why? Because they've been around for forever. It's cold, deep cold water Norwegian fish. I don't recommend get a cheap fish oil because if you do, you're actually going to be poisoning your body. You're going to be putting poison into your body in the form of mercury. If a mercury thermometer breaks, that was a big deal way back when because mercury is poison. So you don't want to put in cheap fish oils. You want to put in omega-3s that are going to help build brain cells that are strong and healthy. Another thing we've come across in the last, maybe 7 to 10 years is video games, video games, iPads, iPods. We've got all these kids that want to do nothing but play on video games all day long. And the truth is some of these games are very good because they focus on hand-eye coordination and they make you think, which is fantastic, which is really important for kids with ADD, ADHD. So some of these games are important. Build hand-eye coordination, builds thinking ability, so it's very good. The challenge is, if you look at it, your kids want to do nothing but play video games all day long. And the challenge is with what's called EMR, electromagnetic radiation, that gets thrown off from these devices. The electromagnetic radiation is like radiation from an X-ray machine. It can get into the body, especially the brain, and start mutating brain cells so that these kids all of a sudden with this EMR, they can't focus anymore. It's these waves or just basically getting into their brain and frying their brain cells. So one solution that we've come up with in my household is 1 week on, 1 week off. And we choose some of the games they play, or actually we choose all the games they play. They can play some games that are just mindless, but some games they have to play, they have to have hand-eye coordination in them. They have to think, whether it be computer chess, computer checkers, hand-eye touch games, and then some of them they can just play whatever it is. But they go 1 week on with the video games, and then they go 1 week off. They can't touch an iPad, an iPod, they can't touch a computer, because during those weeks, we make them read books, we make them draw, we make them color. So now they're using their brain for creativity without the EMRs. They're getting hand-eye coordination on the week on, but on the week off, they're actually using their brain without EMRs to get creative and to function. So we go 1 week on with the stuff, we go 1 week off with the electromagnetic radiation. So we know that, hey, their brain is working hand-eye, their brain is also working creative. The other thing I want to talk about is actual parenting here. It's not easy to be a parent. I mean, it really isn't. Nowadays, there's so many distractions between texting and friends and social networks that it's not easy to be a parent. But I strongly recommend getting involved in your kids' lives and looking at your kids from very young ages and teaching them about how the world works and getting involved and talking with them and showing them exactly how the world works and how that texting can be great, but texting can be dangerous. And the world is very technology-based, so you got to be into it, but you can't be overly into it. Another thing I recommend is you strongly parent in the sense of tell your kids what you expect from them and demand it. If you expect them to be in bed at 8:30, then demand that, but also reward for it. So reward your kids for doing great at studying 5 days a week and getting an A on their test. Don't reward them for the A, but reward them for the effort. Reward them for, hey, you know what? You read 5 books this week. That's fantastic. Don't reward them for scoring 5 goals in a game. Reward them for the effort they put in and the focus they put in, and reward the things you want out of your kids and punish the things that they do that you don't want. However you want to punish your kids, kids do need to be punished. They need to know that there's rules and regulations. So if that means you take away their iPad and their iPod, if they go to their room, whatever that means for you, but as a parent, and it's not easy, and I sympathize with you, you need to reward for the behavior that you want, not what result you get, but the behavior. And you need to punish for the behavior that you don't want, so they understand there's right and there's wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a quick 17 minutes as we teach you what we do in our office, in our household. Hopefully it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please give us a call at 630-226-9922. This is Dr. Jeff, chiropractor extraordinaire, giving you our ways that we help kids with ADD, ADHD, not only in our practice, but our very own kids. Until next month, have an awesome month, make it a great day, and put a smile on your face.